Hi there, my name is Wayne and this is Type Tested. So, I have in front of me a Royal number 5 that I've been working on for a little while. This is called a flat deck typewriter. Sometimes with this style keyboard is referred to as a waterfall. This typewriter needs a good deal of work. I have to polish a number of things, try to get them back where they're supposed to be. I have to figure out how to polish the key plates here. I have done this just as an experiment and it turned out quite nice. So I need to go through the rest of the machine. I've also got some more cleaning to do. The platen here has been sleeved and it's not really a very good job. It tends to move, but it at least allows it to be useful. The problem I'm working on today is the regulator here. So if you permit me to move the camera around and zoom in a bit, you can see clearly the nature of the problem here. Just a second. So this here is the line space regulator. Select it for completely disengage to 1 line, 2, and 3 line spacing. Okay? The problem here is that if I select, it often either won't work or it will go multiple clicks because the regulator keeps slipping off, or the pawl keeps slipping off the regulator. It's supposed to ride on the regulator. Zoom out just a little bit so you can see more clearly. Wrong way. There we go. And slip off the end of it. And then catch the gear on the platen. Fortunately, it's not doing that. And the reason it's not doing that is because there's too much play here. Now, when I got this, I spent some time trying various permutations to just putting things together just to see if maybe it's not quite right, maybe it wasn't put together correctly. Unfortunately, I discovered that, yeah, it pretty well was. So I spent some time tinkering, and what I came up with was there's just too much room here. So everything in this area is not being held tightly enough, and that's allowing the ratchet to move to where it shouldn't be. Oh, I should also point out, right here, this is a spring barrel for the return. This is a set screw for it, and if this set screw comes undone, your return arm isn't going to work quite right, and you'll have to actually wind the spring barrel with your hand, put it in the right position in order to be able to put the set screw back in. It can actually help to have somebody else do this because it's a fairly stiff spring. Anyway, so now we zoom back out here, and I am going to take the platen out and show you what I am going to do to fix this. Now, taking this platen out is fairly easy. You have a couple of set screws over here. You do not need to take the knob off. You just need to loosen these screws here. About 1.5 turns is all you need. And then over here, I need to loosen these 2 set screws and pull the knob off. It comes off just that easy. Now, this is supposed to separate. However, on mine, this has been staked together, so it won't. So now that I've got the set screws out, pull out the platen rod. I can get everything out of the way so that I can. You notice it has this little collar on it. That's for centering it in the hole here, so make sure you keep that up. Then I just have to pull the platen out. As I said, normally this would separate and the gear could stay underneath there and you wouldn't have to worry about putting this back together. So now there's a little collar here. I'm going to push out. And you'll see that I've got the regulator, the ratchet, and there's a spacer in between. Pull this out here. There's my little spacer. So what I decided to do was I needed to get a additional spacer. So I went out and bought a 3/8 inch washer 3/8" flat washer, and it was kind of hard to find one that wasn't a hub washer and way too large. So what I decided to do, I'm going to put that next to this here. However, that presents a little problem. So put this back on. First, you put the collar through the ratchet. Then you put the spacer on. And the spacers push the ratchet up against the right side here of the line space regulator. So you notice I've got a hole for the regulator here, and then there's a little ring that sits above the gear, and this is offset a while. So I'm going to put, you'll also notice these little bits here, they hook onto that spring right here. Zoom in so I can show you. They sit on that spring right there to determine its position. These are the detents that determine what happens with the line spacing. So I'm going to put that on one of these. Well, first, okay, so I've got to make sure that the ratchet is inside that. So I'm going to slide the regulator onto that spring. I'm going to move the hole so I can line it up, push that through, and I'm going to put the platen back in carefully. And on the other side, I'm going to give it a little bit of a turn over here. Slide the rod back in, and now put the collar in so that it centers. Now for the fun bit, trying to get it to match up on the other side, assuming that things haven't come out of position, which it looks like they might have. There we go. Okay, so with this in place, I can give this a try. And you'll notice that I've immediately got a problem. So I put the washer in, and now the regulator is moving with the ratchet because it's too tight. And you can see that there's no possibility of the ratchet coming off the regulator, but I need more room. So what I decided to do at that point, took this back out, pulled the platen back out, and I'll separate things over here. And instead of using the flat washer itself, what I did is I took out a caliper, took a measurement of it, realized this is, as you can see, 0.05, about 8.5. So just about 6/600ths of an inch. And if you look at the original, which is still on the color here, it measures at 0.040. So I need to thin this down, probably to something close to that. So what I did is I prepared a second washer that I ran across some emery paper I used a Dremel to thin it down, then ran across some emery paper and some sandpaper to give it a bit of a polish, because these parts have to be tight, but they also have to slip past each other. So by creating a nice smooth finish, I've made that a little bit easier to deal with. Now the measurement on this comes to just under 0.051. So I've taken 0.008 of an inch off. So let me go ahead and put this back together. So I will put the original spacer on the right side and the new one on the left side. Put the collar back in the regulator. Put that down on the spring. Put it in place. Take the platen, put it back in here. And just fiddle with it a bit, it looks like, to get it to settle down. Okay, why aren't you going in quite all the way? Actually, let's set this up to 0 so it's pushing the detent down. Whoops, don't want to do that. Put the ratchet back on top of the regulator. Put that back in. Put the platen rod back in over here. Collar in place. There we go. Centered and feed it through. Now, if I set it down to 1, works just fine. Set it down to 2. 2 clicks. Set it down to 3. 3 clicks. And completely disabled. And you'll see that even if I push this off to the side, it's not going to fall off the regulator. Now I can also, to a limited extent, flex the regulator back over. And if I need to put more space in, one of the things I can do is I can upset either the ring here on the regulator or one of the spacers to create a little bit of compression. But there still has to be enough room for things to slide around. So there are various options, but that's how things should come together. So now, all that's left, let's put the stops back in place. Now you'll notice that this screw is lined up with that screw, which is lined up with this flat. So this screw over here also lines up. Okay. So tighten that down, line it up, other screw there, do this one over here, stick a random piece of paper in here that happens to be shredded from earlier tests. And everything works just fine. That's all there is to fixing that particular problem, is making sure that there is only enough play over in these parts to allow them to move, but not enough play to allow them to get out of position. That's it. So, thanks for watching. This has been another episode of Type Tested.